Hello, welcome to UMass in Psychology. I am Dr. Jennifer Fugate, a professor here at UMass-D. The biggest question I get from students is, will I get a job? Well, I am here today to tell you 1, what jobs you will get with a bachelor's degree or a higher degree in psychology, 2, briefly what you'll do in these jobs, 3, what you can expect to earn, 4, how many people are doing these jobs, 5, how hard it is to get these jobs, and 6, what you can do here now at UMass-D as an undergraduate to help you achieve these jobs. And I'm going to do it all in 5 minutes. The 3 largest areas of psychology jobs fall into clinical or counseling, research, or education as a professor. We'll talk about each of these in turn. The first one is counseling or clinical. People with a degree in counseling psychology or clinical psychology often work as a counselor, a clinical psychologist, which requires a PhD or a PsyD, or a psychiatrist, which requires an MD. We'll talk about each of these in turn. As a counselor, you'll work in either school or group settings or treatment facilities. You may go on and get a licensed social work degree, become a community liaison, or a career counselor. You may be wondering what the average range income is. Well, it's between $30,000 and $80,000 approximately per year. The hiring rate, of course, with the more advanced degree, the higher your chances of getting a job as a counselor. The percentage of people who go into this area, at least with some degree in psychology, approximately 20%. What can we do here for you at UMass? Well, besides taking the required course, you should take electives relevant in social psychology, testing, or educational psych. You may consider the counseling track. You may choose Psych 298 as a volunteer or internship. Finally, you should consider a master's degree, either here in an ABA or clinical psych. Also consider joining Psych-Hi if you're eligible, and consider the honors program or the psychology honors program. A clinical psychologist will work in individual or group practice or treatment settings, school or group settings, or patient facilities. The average income between $45,000 and $90,000. The hiring rate, because clinical psychologists require a doctorate, either a PhD or PsyD, once you have that doctorate, becoming a clinical psychologist is relatively easy. Of course, getting into those programs is relatively difficult. Most people in psychology go into clinical psychology, although of course it's not the only area of psychology. What can we do here for you at UMass-D? Well, again, in addition to your electives, you should have an internship and volunteer. Consider a master's degree here before moving on to your doctorate. Join Psych-Hi and consider the honors program or psychology honors. As a psychiatrist with a medical degree, you'll probably work in a medical setting or in treatments, in or outpatient facilities. As a psychiatrist, the average income is between $85,000 and $125,000. The hiring rate, again, because it's difficult to obtain a doctorate, in this case a medical doctorate, the hiring rate will be quite great after you have achieved that degree. Percentage of people who go into this area is relatively small, approximately 5%. What can we do for you here? Well, in addition to the requirements, you should consider taking biological psychology or the counseling track. You'll also need to take pre-med requirements, join the pre-health program, and consider all the medical school requirements that you'll need. You should also do an independent study or an internship. Again, join Psych-Hi or Sigma Chi for honors. Join Psych-Hi or the honors program or a psychology honors specific program. You should also consider doing an honors thesis and consider the post-bac program if you're not a competitive candidate or haven't fulfilled your pre-med requirements. The next large field is research. Research typically involves being a lab assistant or coordinator or a research technician. Again, we'll briefly look at both. As a lab assistant or coordinator, you'll probably work wherever research is being conducted. This may be a research center or a university. The average income between $30,000 and $50,000. The hiring rate is pretty low if you only have a master's, but it's much higher if you have a PhD or PsyD. The percentage of people who go into this area, about 10%. What can you do here at UMass if you're interested in becoming a lab assistant or coordinator? The best thing to do is become skilled in research. Again, consider the honors program and consider doing an independent study. If Psych-Hi is right for you and you qualify, join Psych-Hi. Also consider the BAMA program or the master's here in research. As a research technician, you'll again be working in a research setting, but at a slightly higher level. The average income, therefore, is a bit higher. Most research technician positions require a master's degree or a doctorate. About 10% of people specialize in working as a research technician or specialist. What you can do here at UMass is quite similar. Make sure you have a good solid research skill. Make sure that you've done an independent study or a research project. Consider the honors program. You may also want to consider the BAMA program. And finally, let's get to the third major division, and that's education. Most professors come in one of two flavors, either as a lecturer or as assistant, associate, or full tenure track line professor. As a lecturer, you'll teach, advise, and perform community or university service. You'll have an area of specialization, that you specialized in graduate school, and you'll be teaching the appropriate classes. The average income range between $45,000 and $75,000. The hiring rate is quite high, although a doctorate is still necessary. Percentage of people who go into this area, approximately 5%. What can we do for you here at UMass? Well, you should have an area of specialization, you should perform research, you should do an independent study, consider the honors program here in Psych-Hi or Sigma Phi. You should also consider an area of specialization. Make sure you've honed your research skills and consider a master's program as a stepping stone for a doctorate program. And finally, as an assistant, associate, or full professor, that we call tenure track, you'll perform the same duties, but you'll also be running a research lab. The average income range is between $60,000 and $120,000. The hiring rate is quite low, even though a doctorate is required, meaning it's competitive not just to get into graduate school, but also to get the tenure track job. The percentage of people who go into this area, approximately 10%, and that includes all specializations of psychology. We're not just talking clinical, but cognitive, developmental, educational, industrial, health-related psychology, neuroscience, biopsychology, social psychology, and many other different divisions. I hope you found that interesting today. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact me or our department chair, Dr. Tom Boone. The main psychology office is located in Liberal Arts 365. Thank you and welcome to UMass.